Hey, Merfolk fans and Soulherder fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. I'm here with another replay with some Soulherder gameplay. This is a keep because we're looking for lands and spells. This is pretty land heavy, and one of the spells should be a 2-drop that starts drawing us cards. So it's sort of borderline, but keepable for sure. Instead of the fourth land, we'd love to see some interaction like a path or maybe an ephemerate or a force. The opponent mulligan to 6. Forest into Hierarch. All right, could be a number of decks at this point. So we get to play Oracle, pretty strong turn 2 play, and Force could be good. And there's Inkmoth Nexus, so Force is definitely good since we're playing against Infect. Okay, and there is a Glistener Elf. They've now have 2 Infectors with the Exalted on board. With our blockers, they're probably going to choose to go with Inkmoth. Now, we've got Muldrifters, but we're still 3 mana away from actually getting them on the board. This Force is probably going to come in handy. Maybe Witness to recur the Force. There's another Witness. Go ahead and crack Prismatic Vista. Our life total doesn't matter in this matchup since they're only hitting us for Infect. And I'm going to just evoke one of these Muldrifters. Be nice if I could draw into some paths or some more counter spells. Well, so there's a second Force. We're definitely not going to attack. Here's the activation on the Inkmoth. We're going for Groundswell here. So, you know, they need a certain number of pump spells. So this one is actually trying to grow them by +4/+4. It's worth a counter. We're going to be able to get a blue card back with Eternal Witness. We have another counter spell up. Okay, opponent had a Spell Pierce on the mulligan to 6. That's fine. We're going to take some Infect here, but probably not lethal. Well, here's a Mutagenic Growth. I may have spoken too soon. But even if they have another Mutagenic Growth, well, if they do, actually that would be Xaxes, I think. Because there's the Exalted trigger, and it looks like we're set to take 8 here. But the opponent is down to 1 card. Coatl is pretty nice because it's a flying, potentially death-touching threat that can kill an Inkmoth Nexus. Yeah, if we go ahead and get a basic off of this Misty, we could get the opponent pretty well, I think. All right, activation. They swing. With the Exalted trigger, it is lethal, so it's time to flash in the Coatl. Going to draw us a card. We're hoping for a blue card here to be able to pitch for Force. Not a blue spell, but a pretty nice card. 2 more lands away from being able to just wipe away these creatures. And yeah, we'll go ahead and crack this now. So we turn on Death Touch. And looks like the opponent doesn't have removal. I'm going to throw the Coatl in front of the Inkmoth. And yeah, super happy to be able to get that guy off the battlefield. We'll be able to handle this blockable ground creature, no problem. Particularly with this Winds of Abandon. Even though it's not a huge threat right now, it is the only real threat, so might as well go ahead and try to get rid of that thing. Opponent goes for Vines of Vastwood. They're down to 1 card. And we're going to try to counter that. We've still got Eternal Witnesses in hand. We've still got a blocker on board. Opponent has another protection spell, so this is a pretty good mulligan to 6 for them. And yeah, the guy has Hexproof. He's a 3/3, but opponent is empty-handed with only the 1 attacker. All right, so they're getting in for 2. We're forced to chump block, but we're going to be able to start getting value here. That path was beautiful off the top. We're going to start with that. Opponent on 0 cards. We get a Dryad Arbor. Not sure what the purpose of that is. And we get to get Eternal Witness down, and we'll grab Winds of Abandon. We've got our 6 lands at this point. Be able to just wipe away any creatures that they have. All right, and there's a Soulherder, so this is going to get out of hand pretty quickly. And the opponent just scooped. So I feel like Infect is one of our best matchups as Soulherder, as long as we can get past like turn 2. Flying Death Touch is insane against Infect. Counter spells are excellent. Path to Exiles are wonderful. And you can see I'm at 6 lands, and we're at turn 7, actually. Winds of Abandon is live, so even if they play a Blighted Agent, so easy to answer that with a one-sided board wipe. So pretty easy game 1 against Infect. Let's go ahead to game 2, see how that one went. All right, back for game 2. If we check out the sideboard, I expect I brought in pretty much anything that can interact with them. Took out 2 Watchers, took out my 1 Knight. It looks like I brought in 3 cards, which would have been a Spell Snare. It's pretty good. And a Deputy of Detention. And a Deputy of Detention is one that I would have brought in against Saheeli as well. I remember I was kind of blanking on what I brought in against them. It's a little tricky remembering since I have like something like 13 different cards in the sideboard. So, yeah, a Deputy of Detention, a Spell Snare, and 1 other card. Opponent's going to be on the play. This is not a keep. This is definitely a keep. So I think we're going to pitch the Muldrifter since it's so expensive. Or what did I pitch? I guess I got rid of... Yeah, that I thought I was going for Muldrifter, but maybe I can open the game log or whatever. Yeah, sometimes they don't let me on the replay. Yeah, I guess you can rewind this video and see what I pitched, but I thought it would have been the Muldrifter. Maybe it was an extra land because I have the Hierarch and I don't need 3 lands and Hierarch. All right. Looks like the opponent kept their 7. I drew a second Hierarch. Or maybe, I think if I recall correctly now, maybe I pitched a second Hierarch and then drew into a second one anyway. All right, here is a second Glistener Elf, which I was kind of rubbing my hands together, hoping for, and they had the second Glistener Elf. So this is a pretty huge blowout. Deputy of Detention, give me those Glistener Elves. If they had like a Dismember, and I guess they could wait till my turn, but then I could hardcast Force anyway. Okay, getting in with Hierarch. Don't really feel like blocking that right now. Looks like they were stuck on 1 land. Breeding Pool. Let's go ahead and open with Ice Fang. See what I draw. Another Force. Play that tapped. Get in with the Deputy. Now, this was a slight misstep here. I probably should have played the second Hierarch first. Not a huge deal, but kind of stupid. Okay, untapped Breeding Pool probably means Blighted Agent, but could mean some other things. Opponent going for pump spells on the Hierarch. So, first one is fine. I take 5, no big deal. Still at 11 life. With 2 counter spells in hand. Get in with Double Exalted. We actually have enough mana to hardcast a Muldrifter here, so that's what I'm going to be doing. Draw 2 cards, pretty sweet. And yeah, we still have 2 blue cards to pitch for these 2 forces. And we're getting closer to turning on Death Touch. Once we get another basic and another Coatl down, we'll have Death Touch online. Looks like we can just throw this Muldrifter under the bus. Muldrifter drew us 2 cards, gets a pump spell out of the opponent's hand. So this is more for deck thinning purposes there, since I didn't get a shock land. I want to start building up my basics to turn on Death Touch. Ephemerate, pretty nice. If they try to kill the Deputy, I can always just Ephemerate it now to protect it. Getting in for 3. Clock is ticking. And yeah, just pass. I guess I could have gone for a second Muldrifter here. Opponent main phases Might of Old Krosa. And if I flash in a Coatl, now they both have Death Touch. Going for the block, and the opponent just scooped. So, Deputy of Detention, definitely MVP there. Getting rid of 2 Glistener Elves, just sort of insane. Muldrifter didn't get to combo it with Ephemerate, but got down as a chump blocker in this matchup. A lot of times that's kind of all you need. If you have an attacker and sort of limitless chump blocks, that's going to be enough. Multiple counter spells. As I mentioned in game 1, Infect just feels like a pretty favorable matchup for us. I'm still figuring out like which matchups are favorable and unfavorable, which ones are kind of balanced. The deck is still really young. It's what makes it so exciting. So please leave your thoughts down below. If you have any thoughts on favorable or unfavorable matchups, please leave them in the comment section. I guess unfavorable ones would be ones that run board wipes, big mana decks like Tron and Primeval Titan decks can be hard to deal with. We need to bring in some Disdainful Strokes for those guys. I guess Collector Oof helps there too. Counter spells for board wipes, that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyhow, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please check out my Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel. And keep tuning in. I'll try to keep uploading more Soulherder content. We've got that sweet card that got spoiled, Charming Prince, that I'm going to be testing as soon as it's released. So yeah, tune in for that, and I'll see you there. Bye.